I hope you've enjoyed the academic information sessions and the student panel. Thank you for being with us throughout this time. We know, Saturdays can be busy times. So just really appreciative that you are staying on for the whole session. Now, it's really important that we help you understand how you access a Gonzaga education. So I'm going to cover our admission process, and Jim White, Dean of Student Financial Services, will present on financial aid, and then we'll open it up to questions. We do have some colleagues in the chat that are going to be answering questions for you. So some questions will be asked along the way, and then we can also have some at the end. Okay, let me share my screen. Hopefully that looks good. Let's see. We strive to be as simple and as transparent as possible when we're talking about our access process. And for first year students, we have one deadline, December 1st. We don't have early action. We eliminated that a couple of years ago. We do not have early decision. We want equal access to Gonzaga, and we want it to be simple and transparent. Our idea is that if we are simplifying things, we hopefully are alleviating some of the stress you have around applying to college. And some of that stress can also be about like not understanding a process. So we're going to dig into that a little bit just to help alleviate the concerns that you might have as you go through this process. We have one deadline, December 1, as I mentioned, and we are on one application, the common application, so commonapp.org, and this is for first year students. There is an Act 6 application process, so students from Spokane or Seattle, Tacoma who are applying for the Act 6 scholarship, it is on the Common App, but their deadline is November 30th. So just really close to December 1, but hit that November 30th deadline. That would be important. For transfer students, we have our own application on our website, apply.gonzaga.edu/apply. And for fall admission, we have two deadlines, March 1, a priority deadline, June 1, a final deadline for fall admission. And for first year and transfer students who are applying for spring, and I think some of you were interested in spring admission, the deadline is November 15. Please note, if you are a high school student who's taking college classes through dual enrollment, running start, college in the high school, and the like, you are considered a first year student with college credit. So you use the common application. If you have not yet graduated from high school, regardless of college credit that you've earned, you are a first year student. Now, as a general rule, we're looking for preparation in our admission process, not perfection. Perfection is not necessary. It's also not real. When we evaluate applications, it's a holistic review. This means we're going to review everything you send us, and there are 5 to 6 key items: curriculum, grades and grade trends, quality of writing, character, extracurricular activities. And the reason why I say 5 to 6 is because test scores are optional. That is the student choice. If you want to review our admission requirements online, gonzaga.edu/admission recs will get you there. But let me break down each process. I'm going to start with grades. We use an unweighted GPA in our process to put all students on the same number scale, 4.0 scale. Don't worry, if your GPA is weighted, you're going to earn that weight back when we do a curriculum review. While the overall GPA is helpful, looking at grade trends and patterns really helps us get a sense for preparation for college. If you had a tough start to high school and you've been trending up ever since, that awkward freshman year that so many people have, you're in a good position. Let's not panic. You may have other oddities. Maybe you had a concussion in soccer, or adjusting to a pandemic was a little bit challenging. Maybe you had a class with 3 teacher changes in one semester. I did work with a student like that last year, 3 different teachers in one semester. And that can really disrupt your education. So if there's anything on your transcript that you wish to explain, please use the additional information section in the application and/or meet with your admission counselor for an interview. As for curriculum, first-year applicants should have taken, at minimum, a college preparatory curriculum. And we also encourage challenging yourself in academic areas of strength. If you're a math and science person, go big on those classes. If you're really talented in math and science, take those AP classes, those IB classes. You don't have to have 4, like 6, 8 advanced classes in senior year to be admissible to Gonzaga. What we want is for you to challenge yourself in the ways that make most sense for you. And I just noticed on my slide that I'm missing a T in geometry. So I apologize for my typo. And I'm going to get to that when we talk about writing on the application. Outside of academics, we are interested in learning about your extracurricular involvement and leadership, including part-time employment. How you spend your time indicates your passions and your talents. Perhaps you love to build computers, tutor young children, plan school events, all 3. We are a vibrant community, and we're excited of the diversity of interests that our applicants bring to our campus. Also, if you're a nursing applicant, it can be helpful to know any exposure you've had to healthcare, such as volunteering in a hospital or doing a job shadow program, or like healthcare type programs in your school or in summer programs. Now, the area of the application where your voice can be the loudest is in the writing section. Tell us about who you are and what you care about. Go beyond the surface. An essay stating like, I love Model UN and we won a lot of awards. That's just repeating your activity list, really. So rather, we want you to write about like the most challenging Model UN conference moment you had and how you resolved the situation. Take us deeper into it and help us learn a little bit more about you. And please take care to submit a well-written application throughout. It should not look like a text message. There should be proper capitalization. And you want to make sure someone looks over your materials so you don't have a typo like I did on the last slide. So look at me telling you to do something that I've already done myself. Lastly, character is important. And the people in your schools can share information about who you are in the classroom and in your school community. We are a medium-sized school, about 5,000 undergraduates. Who's on this campus? You know, we really impact each other. So we require 1 teacher recommendation and 1 secondary school report from the high school counselor, or if you're a transfer student, a college officials report. And that teacher recommendation should be from a core academic class and not from, say, a coach or something like that. And we will let you know if we are missing materials in your application through email as you go through this admission process. So if we find that you have submitted a teacher recommendation that's not academic, we'll send you a message and ask you for an academic recommendation. Now we have 2 direct admission programs, nursing and engineering. The nursing program is rather small, the demand is high, so it is a highly competitive program. The small size of it really lends to being just a fantastic program because in your clinical placements, you work one-on-one with a nurse. So it's important to us to keep it small. That driving up of the competition just means that we're going to have to look at some special things in the application process as we make those decisions. At minimum, we need to see 4 years of math and science in your curriculum if you're applying to nursing. Healthcare experience can be really helpful as well, but we do recognize that COVID has disrupted some of those opportunities. The average GPA for nursing students tends to be above our general averages or at the top end of our middle 50% range, which will be on the next slide, and I'll show you that in just a second. We have much more capacity in engineering. We have a whole school of engineering and applied science, and the direct admission program ensures that you start in the major your first year of college, putting you on path for a 4-year degree. For engineering admission, we look for strength in math, as students need to be ready for college calculus in their first semester of college. The best preparation is being in calculus senior year and having taken physics at some point in school and having success in those courses. Now, students with less preparation in math and science may be offered pre-engineering when admitted, and it is possible to be admitted into engineering with pre-calc as your highest math class in senior year, so long as there's strength in math and science throughout your 4 years. So we'll do that holistic review to get a good sense for where you're at in your preparation for college level calculus. Now we are test optional. It's up to the student to decide if an SAT or ACT will be used in the admission process. In the absence of tests, we'll place more weight on grades, curriculum, and writing on the application. Students who do not submit test scores have the same access to admission, automatic merit scholarships, special scholarships, direct admission to nursing and engineering, and the honors program. We are truly test optional. However, there's one exception, kind of two. Homeschooled students who have less than 30 semester or 45 quarter college credits when applying for admission, they do need to submit an SAT or ACT. And additionally, international students who opt out of submitting an SAT or ACT must submit a test to indicate level of English proficiency. And a student who does not meet our English proficiency guidelines may still enroll at Gonzaga through the Gonzaga Global Program, which is designed to provide language support while taking undergraduate classes. We accept a range of GPAs. A's and B's in a good college preparatory curriculum is typically admissible, but the middle 50% range this year was a 3.53 to a 3.9. That's pretty typical for us from year to year, and that's an unweighted GPA. This means 25% of the students were above a 3.9, 25% were below a 3.53. For students with a 3.2 GPA or lower, you're just getting into more vulnerable of a category. So we recommend an admission interview to strengthen the application. This is when we can learn more about those bumps that happened during high school, or why you've been on an upward trend, or what happened junior year. Now, interviews are open to all students. We want to meet with you. We want to learn more about you. We'd love to connect you to special opportunities at Gonzaga that are more specific to your interests and your needs. And in addition, we have some special information for transfer students. If you have 30 or more semester credits and 40 or 45 or more quarter credits in college, then the minimum GPA for admission at GU is a B- or a 2.7 in your college coursework. If you have less credits than that, then we're going to use high school information in our review process. As I mentioned earlier, the review of the application determines an automatic merit scholarship. Actually, I'm not sure if I did mention that. The review of your application determines an automatic merit scholarship. This is for first year and transfer students. This includes international students as well. The scholarship amounts range from $14,000 a year to $25,000 a year, and they are guaranteed for 4 years. The scholarship amount earned is communicated to students in the acceptance packet, and they are awarded by the Office of Admission. Now, before I turn it over to Jim White, I do want to mention that international students, you do have access to merit scholarships, any merit scholarship. The need-based aid discussed in this next final presentation might not be as relevant to you, but please know those merit scholarships are available. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jim White, Dean of Student Financial Services.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much, Erin. I appreciate it. So let's start with the slide presentation. What I'm going to try to do today is just give you information about Gonzaga's financial aid process to make it as simple and straightforward as I can. Next slide. All right. So my office is Student Financial Services, and we're located in Crosby Center on campus. And the office is made up of the Financial Aid Department, the Student Employment Department, and the Student Accounts Department. So anything related to billing, payment, getting financial aid, trying to find a job, all of that is handled through my department. And we're happy to help. We're available. If you have questions, you can email or call anytime, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Next slide, please. A little bit of data about our financial aid program. About 99% of the incoming freshmen, and I think it's 97% of the incoming transfer students, receive institutional aid. The average institutional grant and scholarship for our brand new students last fall, $23,862. Students ask a lot about borrowing, so I like to give some information about that. About 53% of the students who graduated last year borrowed during their time at Gonzaga, and their average indebtedness from federal student loan programs was about $22,750 roughly. So we do rely on our federal loan programs, but about a little bit more than half of the students borrow during their time. A lot of students develop alternative strategies to help with costs, like some students might become a resident assistant, for example. And as a resident assistant, you get free room and board. So maybe those years they don't borrow quite so much. So there's lots of different strategies students use. Go ahead, Erin, next one, please. And kind of just a global view, Gonzaga contributes about $125 million into its financial aid program each year. We get about $62 million from the federal government. Most of that is federal student loans. We get about $5 million from the state government. A few years ago, the state changed their state grant program to the Washington College Grant, and it's based on median family income. And basically, they developed a model so that anyone who is eligible gets the money. So it's been a really great boon for students, because we used to run out of funding from year to year, and some students didn't get it, but that's no longer an issue with Washington State residents who are eligible for Washington College Grant. Go ahead, Erin, next slide, please. As Erin mentioned, the admission scholarships range from $14,000 to $25,000. They're based on the holistic review that Erin mentioned. In addition to the scholarships, we will award what we call Gonzaga Grant, which is need-based grant that's awarded using a combination of both your academic merit, so how you've been evaluated based on the admissions office's evaluation of your application, and your financial need as documented by the financial aid application, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Next slide, please. One thing that's unique about Gonzaga is that when we award you aid in your incoming year, either your freshman year or your first year as a transfer student, the institutional aid won't change. It will not decrease in subsequent years. So if you're admitted and we award you a merit scholarship and a grant and it comes out to $25,000, you can count on that over the entire length of your undergraduate program. And so if you're here for 2 years as a transfer student or 3 years as a transfer student, you can count on that. Or if you're here as a first-time freshman for 4 years, you can count on that. Our portion of the aid package won't change. There may be some fluctuations in federal and state aid depending on federal and state policy changes, but the Gonzaga guarantee will lock in the amount of institutional aid you've been awarded for your entire time. Next slide, please.
Hey, before I move it, I remember there being a question in the chat about extending if a student is here for longer than 4 years. And I said yes, but you want to mention that too.
So we do award the funding assuming you're going to be here for 4 years. And there are some programs where there are things that pop up that make that impossible. And it's very easy to get a ninth semester, an additional semester, or even an additional year of institutional aid. We're pretty flexible on that. You can do all of our programs in 4 years, with the exception of the nursing program, which you actually will do in 4 years if you want. But because of clinical placements and the availability of spots, we do have some students that begin clinicals their spring semester and others in fall semester. So those students who start in fall semester typically will go one more semester and they'll have their institutional aid that semester. Some nursing students do that kind of empty semester or that extra semester, they'll do prerequisites, they'll study abroad, or all sorts of creative things. You definitely will get your aid if you go beyond the 4th year. What we can't really do is if you want to like triple major and 16 minors and you're going into a 5th or a 6th year, I think that's really not a good thing for you. I think your families won't really appreciate that strategy. And so we do try to help you to make good decisions to get done in, again, 8, 9 semesters is fairly typical. Okay, go on. Thanks, Erin. Another thing that just wanted to make sure people knew about is that if you're a Washington State resident and you're eligible for the federal Pell Grant, we will award you what we call our Magis commitment, which is we're going to provide grants and scholarships that will cover all of your tuition. And so the key here is that you're eligible for a federal Pell Grant and you're from the state of Washington. We can do that because the state of Washington has a pretty large state grant, and our funds, we have enough funding to meet the difference between what isn't covered by your merit scholarships, the federal and state grants, pretty easily. So that is a commitment we make to Washington residents. Pell eligible students are typically the neediest students. They typically have very few resources for college. Next slide. All right, Erin mentioned a couple of times additional scholarship opportunities. And I wanted to just mention that we do have about a dozen scholarships for incoming students, freshmen and transfers, that require a separate application. And they're all hosted on the admissions website. If you go into scholarships and tuition, I think is the heading of the site, but the link is there on the slide. Some students think they have to wait to be admitted before they apply for these scholarships, and you don't. You should be applying for them in November and December. There's typically a due date. It's not December 1 anymore, Erin, right? It's yikes. What is the due date for the scholarships? I think it's Feb 1.
January 1st.
January 1st. Okay, thank you. Sorry, lost it for a moment. So those scholarships are all what we call, in addition, stackable. There's scholarships that stack on the merit scholarship you'll be awarded based on your admissions application, and they're also renewable for all 4 years. So don't hesitate. Go ahead and apply for those. Take a look at them when you get a minute. We do have scholarships for continuing students. They're mostly based on academic merit. Some will be based on major. We will simply review the database and award students for those as they become available. You don't typically have to apply for them. If there are applications that are required, we send out information to students through our daily electronic newsletter that all students get, which we call Morning Mail. If your parents or grandparents are alums of Gonzaga, alumni, there is an alumni scholarship, and that is available on that. There's a link to it on that scholarship webpage. And that deadline, the application is usually due in late December or January. So take a look at that and fill that out. We also offer a family discount. So if you have a sibling at Gonzaga or a sibling to come at Gonzaga, we would give you a 10% discount to the oldest child. And if there are other siblings, we would give discounts to other family members. And we have had times where we've had 3 students enrolled as undergrads all at one time. I think there was a set of twins in that, and that's been a few years now. So next slide, please, Erin. The way the only form that we use to determine financial aid eligibility is called the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, FAFSA. It's available October 1st of the student's senior year. So if you're seniors now, you can do the FAFSA. We're in day 2. The FAFSA form is free. We don't require anything else, any additional form. It is a form that will allow your family, as you complete it, if your parents want to transfer the data over from the IRS, they can do that. They simply just click on they answer the question that yes, and the data will come over like magic. What the FAFSA is trying to do is predict the amount of money that you and your parents can contribute for college. We do ask incoming students who are freshmen to file the FAFSA by December 1, and our priority deadline for transfers is March 1. And for priority, we just mean that we're gonna, if we get the data by that opportunity, we'll consider you for the maximum amount of aid that we have available from all sources. We typically don't run out of aid, but it's really good when you're applying for financial aid to plan ahead and do it well in advance, because lots of things can happen just to kind of sidetrack the process. And we want to help you get ahead of that so it's all smooth. You can certainly, you can go ahead, Erin, that's fine. Parents and students, you do need to get what's called an FSA ID and a password. You can do that online at that same link that someone added to the chat. And you can get one now if you're a junior and just put it in a safe place and keep it. So every FAFSA must be signed by at least one parent and one student. Now, for students who are undocumented, we have a couple of additional applications. Undocumented students can't file the FAFSA, but there is a state-based financial aid form, and we would evaluate you for our grant funding and other programs and the state grant program by filling that out. So the link is there. It's called the WASFA, and it's available at the Washington Student Achievement Council's website. We do have a form that we've created for students who are undocumented, not from Washington, and the link is here in the slide. And again, we try to just gather some information from you about your family and we'll use that to award you grant funds. And we do have some institutional loan programs as well that will help with the cost of Gonzaga. Next slide, please. So just a few things that trip people up. These are things I look for on the FAFSA all the time. Investments are, there's a part of the FAFSA that asks your family and you to report investments. Retirement accounts, so IRAs, 401k, pension plans, annuities, retirement accounts are not reported on the FAFSA. You also don't report on the FAFSA the value of your primary residence. So if your family has a cabin on a lake somewhere and a home, you would report the cabin on the lake, but you wouldn't report the value on the home. If your parents have an IRA, a savings plan for retirement, you would not report that on the FAFSA. And the FAFSA wants the student to include on the form information about the parents. And the parent would be the both legal parents if they are living together, both biological parents if they're living together. If in cases where a parent is parents are divorced, you would report the information on the parent that you received the most support from in 2021, or a good rule of thumb is the parent that you lived with the most in 2021. And if that parent, so if your biological parent that you're living with is remarried, you would report information about your parent, your biological parent, and your step parent. All that information would be included. Complicated. If you have any questions, email us, give us a call. Your parents can give us a call. We're happy to talk it through. So some students are lucky enough to have educational savings plans. They're also called Coverdell savings accounts, 529 plans. Those are assets of the parent, and you want to make sure you report them as such because the treatment is better than if they were reported as an asset of the student. So Erin, let's go to the next slide. And what we're going to do with all of this data, the FAFSA is again going to calculate based on your income and assets and expected family contribution. We're going to subtract that from our cost of attendance, and that the difference is going to be your financial need. The financial need is the amount of money you need to come to college. And we'll try to build a financial aid package that would include scholarship, grant, work study, and student loans to meet that financial need. Next slide, please. Cost of attendance for the current year is here on the slide. The bottom right-hand corner, what I call direct costs, is basically reflecting what you would be billed for when you enroll and if you live on campus. So that's full-time tuition. Full-time tuition at Gonzaga is the same for in-state and out-of-state students. We have one rate. Everyone pays the same. Required fees, and then typical room and meal plan costs. There's some variation in room and meal plans. It depends on what students pick, where they choose to live. If you lived in a single room, it would cost more than a double room. You can pick the maximum meal plan, or there are a couple of slightly less expensive options. So that's the direct costs all reflected there. So approximately $61,749 for the current year. The cost of attendance in the upper left-hand corner really reflects a budget, something that we create to come up with reasonable costs. So like books and supplies, what's a reasonable amount of books and supplies a typical student will run into each year? And $1,212 is a reasonable amount. Many students are very creative in where they get their books. And, you know, there's this big website you might have heard of called Amazon, where you can often find a really good deal on books. Our bookstore is really great about offering rental options in electronic format. Those books, electronic format or rental options are often cheaper. You can buy your books from your pal who had the class the year before. There's all sorts of creative things people can do, but $1,212 is a pretty reasonable estimation for what you would incur in terms of books and supplies. And in that cost of attendance, we add some personal expenses, you know, think about clothes, personal care products, transportation, $1,632. We're assuming you're going to come to campus you're probably going to do an airfare to campus twice, you know, once to get to campus in the fall, then to go home at Christmas, come back in January, return home after spring semester is over. So that's really what the transportation is based on. So again, it's more like a budget of all the things you can encounter. My son attended Gonzaga many years ago now, it feels like, but he's 5 years out. We live 5 blocks from campus, so transportation costs from him were none, really zero. And he hardly ever came home. We never saw him. Next slide, please. So the process after you get admitted from Gonzaga and the information goes out to students in typically February, we'll work on pulling together a financial aid package and try to get that out by the middle of March. And that letter will be a financial aid offer, and it will be the best offer based on all of the information we have at that time. And you'll get a letter sent to your home. And then the financial aid information is also available on our student portal that's called ZagWeb. Typically, you'll get access to ZagWeb in the admissions process at some point, and you can view it online. And the next steps with that is then you'd have a chance to ask questions about your award offer. You'd have an opportunity to call us, talk with us, complete requirements that may be in place for your financial aid award. And then, of course, we ask you to confirm your enrollment by May 1 if you're an incoming freshman. And so next slide, please, Erin. We do recognize, though, that the FAFSA, you have to remember the FAFSA is using your parents' income and your income from 2 years ago. So the current FAFSA will be using income for 2020. A lot of things can happen to a family in 2 years, and many changes of income can happen. And so we have a process we call our special circumstance process, or a financial aid appeal process. And it's on our website, and this is a picture of the web page, and it describes it, it talks about the form. It's really very simple to schedule an appointment and talk through the financial aid appeal process. And things that we routinely would take into consideration would be loss of income, loss of benefits. Some students receive child support from, again, parents who are divorced. That ends when they graduate from high school, but yet it's reported on the FAFSA. You might have siblings that are attending an elementary or secondary school, and your family's paying tuition. We would take that into consideration. And there's certainly always medical and dental expenses not covered by insurance that families encounter. We're happy to take that into consideration. And the quick link is gonzaga.edu/financial aid, and you'd get the information on the appeals, the link to the appeal page. Very routine, we do it all the time. Thanks, Erin. So student employment, you may want to come to college and get a job. I'm a big fan of students working while they're in college. Jobs are really a great way for you to meet more people, earn a little bit of money, so you're borrowing less, or perhaps asking your parents for less, and you're saving your summer savings or whatever you're bringing to college and stretching that money further. Most of the student employment opportunities for students are flexible. They give you the opportunity again to network, and they work around your class schedule. The minimum wage in Washington is $13.69, and I think it's going up to like $14.60 in January. So Washington State is on the trajectory to get to $15 an hour in the next couple of years, maybe the next year. About 1,600 students work on campus each year. We have a on-campus work-study program. We have an off-campus work-study program. And actually, the largest portion of students are students who are just working part-time jobs and not on a financial aid program. So there's lots of jobs available if you want to work, whether or not you're awarded work-study. Next slide, please, Erin. Many students are lucky enough in the admissions process to earn outside scholarships. A lot of them come from your community, your high schools, maybe organizations in your community. About 600 students brought in 2.1 million scholarships for the 2021 school year. We use those scholarships to reduce loan burden or replace unmet need. Well, replace unmet need first and then reduce loan burden. We will not adjust your institutional aid for those outside scholarships, so it won't have an impact on your grants and scholarships. Some common organizations that provide them are listed. There's a couple of great databases. There's a site called washboard.org here in Washington that students can search for scholarships on. And we have an outside scholarship database on our main Gonzaga financial aid page. So if you go to the main financial aid page from the admissions main page, you'll be able to go to the outside scholarship database. And you can look at that. It changes all the time. And as we get information from outside vendors, we put that information there and make it available to students. The best place to find outside scholarships is your community. So there are a lot of foundations in various communities, and so the best place is to look there. Next slide, please, Erin. And then people always want to know about billing and payment, so just want to have a slide on that. Typically, students pay by semester. You get billed usually in July for fall semester and in December for spring semester. We have a payment plan that is basically allows you to spread the payments out for 4 months over the semester. Many families will take advantage of a federal parent loan program, or some parents will and students borrow through private alternative loan programs. Again, billing statements are usually available in mid-July. We'll be sending you information out throughout the cycle, but you'll get a lot of information after May 1 about billing and payment for the upcoming year. I think that's the last one, right? Yeah, so I see people have kept up with the chat questions. What other questions do people have? I think we've got a little bit of time, right, Erin?
Yes, we do. And thank you, Carrie and Sam, for your great work in the chat. Are there any questions that we should answer aloud?
Erin, there was one from a little bit back. Let me just find it so that you can address a little bit more on admission. Okay, so the question was, in the admission process, are there different standards or expectations depending on major or school? For example, in the nursing school or a pre-health major, are you expecting higher test scores to be submitted? Or is the admission process major blind, with the exception of a direct admit program like nursing?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are test optional for admission to nursing and for engineering. If you submit a test, you'll want it to be competitive for one of those programs. And we can talk to you about that in the admission office to help you. I forgot to mention when I was showing the slide with the average, let's see, I could just, my screen sharing just stopped. It went nutso on me. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. That is very strange. Anyway, our middle 50% ranges for test scores, SAT and ACT, they got inflated in the last year because students submitted scores because they were proud of them, right? They submitted the higher scores. So for example, the ACT, our mid-range used to be 26 to 30, and now our mid-range is 28 to 32. So it can give you an idea of which scores are probably going to be competitive as far as merit scholarship determination and special programs. If you have a high GPA and a lot of involvement in advanced coursework, we're going to put more weight on grades and curriculum and writing on the application if you do not submit a test score. But I hope that answers the question. It sounds like you're wondering if you should submit a test score. And in that case, talk to us. Let's have a meeting and we can talk to you, just get a little more information about what classes you've taken, what your grades have been like, and what your scores are, and whether or not they're going to help you in the process. Does that answer the question, Carrie?
I think so. And I think along with what you introduced when you talked about what direct admission was like, I think that probably did. But please do let us know if there's more to that. Type that in the chat for us. This one is also for you, Erin. What is the short answer question like? And I'll do it as a two-parter. And what are you looking for in the personal essay?
Oh, good question. So first, just let's take the stress out of the essay. I think there's a lot of hype in the media and in our nation that the essay is everything in the college application. It drives me nuts that every spring there's some like Today Show story on how this essay got this student into Harvard. That's just not how it works. Academics are the most important part of the college admission process. Classes, grades, you're showing schools how prepared you are for college academics. So for us, a 5-paragraph essay, it's something that you could turn into your English teacher and you feel really strong about it. Like, this is a good essay. You know, I feel good. I'm going to get an A on this. That's probably something that's going to be great on your college application. And run those essays by people you trust. in particular, English teachers, you want to go through the writing process, do the brainstorming, the outlining, drafting, editing, have someone look at it, give you some advice on, on the essay itself, and just help you make sure that it's a clean piece of writing. A 5-paragraph essay typically has an introduction, a body with more detail and evidence, and a conclusion. It's hard. We understand it is hard to write about yourself. You haven't been doing that for 12 years in your education. You've probably been writing more analytical work. So it's okay if it feels uncomfortable, because that's something you're probably not used to doing. And the idea is to just go a little bit below the surface. So in my presentation, I said, don't just say, I love Model UN and we've won a lot of awards. Like, get deeper into something important that happened during your Model UN experience and what you learned from that and how you grew. It's really about reflecting on yourself, what you care about, and kind of where you're at as you go into the college years. Now, the short answer question on our supplement, as students will call it, I think the Common App calls it Gonzaga questions. And then on the college side, we see it as the member page. So there's 2 choices. And one is about like talking about a challenge and how you grew from that. The other one is about like an important experience and how you grew from that. This really is a short answer question, just a paragraph. It helps us learn a little bit more about you. And it's another opportunity to take a look at your writing. And it does not have to be a second essay. It should be a paragraph. So hopefully that answered your question. If you wanted to talk more about it, see, what are you looking? Yeah. And again, do as I say, not as I do. So my typos that I had in the presentation, like, don't do that. Make sure someone looks at it before you submit it to colleges. And your application, the writing on the application should reflect the writing in your essay and the writing in the short answer question. So your name should be capitalized. The name of your family member should be capitalized. Just like treating it as a professional document is a great idea. Treating it as like something you just bang out on your phone, like you're signing up for something at school, a club at school. Let's not do that. Let's actually take some time and treat it as a professional document.
Great, thank you, Erin. And thanks, Jim, for answering in the chat, reminding people that they can fill out scholarship applications, and they need to fill out their scholarship applications for those separate application scholarships before they hear back from us on admission. So that's helpful to know.
And I would add to that, if you are eligible to apply for one of those special scholarships, because they have GPA qualifications, it's a good indicator that you're admissible to Gonzaga. So I would, if I were you, I'd feel comfortable applying to those special scholarships, and they will open on November 1st. So let's focus on the application for admission now, and then we'll open the applications for honors and special scholarships on November 1st, and they'll be due January 1st.
Perfect. I think you cleared the Q&A. Any other questions, anyone?
I just want to say thank you so much for being with us today. We have loved having some interaction time with you that's virtual. And again, we are open for in-person visits, so you are welcome to come to our campus. We have a preview day this Friday, October 8th. We have another one October 18th, November 12th. We have daily visits, Saturday visits. Maybe Sandra was going to cover this, but I just wanted to give an extra invitation from me. We'd love to get to know you throughout this entire process, whether it is virtual or in person. And thanks for coming. Sandra?
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Thanks, Erin and Jim, for all of that information and for getting through so many questions. I'm going to do one final screen share just with a couple quick announcements for everyone before I let you all sign off for the day. So thank you for spending a few hours of a Saturday with us. I know it's a busy time of year for all of us. So thank you so much for carving out some time to join us. As Erin said, it was so great to get to know you, and hopefully you got a little bit more insight to what it means to be a ZAG from our faculty and from our students and staff as well. If you indicated that you are interested in doing an admission interview or meeting with an admission counselor at this point, stick around in Zoom. I will also say, if you didn't say that you wanted to meet with someone, but now you do, that's totally fine, stick around. And if you did say that you wanted to meet with someone and now you can't, also fine, feel free to sign off. We do have upcoming virtual events that are listed here. So we have guided virtual tours, virtual information sessions, and virtual student panels that happen on a regular basis. We also have some webinars coming up. We have one on October 13th that is specific to how to apply for financial aid. So if you're looking for more details about financial aid or you still have questions, that's a great opportunity. And then we'll have one more focused around finding community at Gonzaga in mid-November. And then we also offer one-on-one student meetings and faculty meetings as well. It's specifically for juniors and seniors and transfer students, so those that are a little closer to the application process. And there's always more one-off events that pop up and that are happening. So gonzaga.edu/virtual Gonzaga is your spot for all things virtual programming. And as Erin mentioned, we are open for in-person visits. We do have some limited capacity, so there isn't a guarantee that we have space for the exact day that you might want to come, but we do have a lot of space available. And all of that information can be found at gonzaga.edu/visit. So thank you all so much for joining us. If you are interested in doing an admission meeting or an admission interview, please stick around here in the Zoom, and I'm going to get our admission counselors over to some breakout rooms and then get you all sent over there for individual meetings. If you are not planning to do an admission meeting at this point, you are welcome to sign off. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, feel free to reach out to anyone in our office with any questions as we go through this process. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Admission counselors, I am going to bump you over into some breakout rooms, so hang tight for a second. It'll probably move you over.